the Meta. I'm your host, Jay Larson, and joining me this week is the one, the only, Brent Simon. Hello, Brent.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. And you?
Not too bad. So, I do have a bit of a confession for you, Brent. We've chatted a lot over the years, and, like, every time I'm chatting with you, I have, like, this, deep-seated worry that I'm saying Brent, but your name is actually Brett, and I don't really have any idea why you're the only person that this happens with. But
so
it's
funny
kind of funny
story about that, actually. Fogel used to live 5 hours from me, and we'd go to all the same tournaments. The number of people who got us backwards is not zero. It's actually rather high. I have ordered special trays and widgets from some people, and they've shipped it to my house, spelling my name Brett. So I'm just used to it. Plus, my wife's best friend from college is named Britt, which really makes things confusing.
Yeah. Anyways, why with that I guess amusing anecdote out of the way, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Brent Simon. I've been a Warmachine player since, at the time the book was out, but we didn't have models. So that's real old is what I'm told. I remember actually proxying up with 40k models and deciding I liked Kador early on. And as my buddy phrased it, that was the only game he's won, was the demo game when we didn't have models. I settled into Kador pretty quick because for those of you who played in Mark 1, Vlad 1 was fair and balanced, and then followed shortly by Karchev and Old Witch 1. And if you don't know how busted that was in Mark 1, ask some people who've been around for a while, and you literally won't believe it.
It is kind of amazing to think back about, like, I played Warmachine in Mark 1, and, it's amazing to think that, there were people winning the game at the top of turn 1, and we were thinking, man, this is such a great game, and it's the best on the market, and that was probably true, and so it is interesting to I guess think back about how much game design in general and I guess with Warmachine in specific has progressed over time.
It is an entirely different game, and it is fantastic where it has come from, where it started. When Hordes came out, I picked up Legion, and Mark 1 Seraphs were just place the model within 2 of wherever the Seraph ends up. So if you think Slipstream is broken now, a 26-inch Typhon move was not uncommon. So, I played Legion for the remainder of Mark 1 with a little bit of a break in there for World of Warcraft. And then I picked up, Mark 2 I played Legion until I finally qualified for Warfare Weekend, or Warmachine Weekend at the time. Took Legion to my first invitational, and then since then I've played, Signar, Grimkin, Retribution, Strange Bedfellows. I just lumped that in as a faction at this point, and that's under what I would flag competitively, and I feel I'm missing 1 or 2, and then a whole host of side factions. Basically, if it's a broken, gimmicky combo list of some kind, I'll probably pick it up and play it. I did pick up, I picked up Body and Soul for fun. I picked up Denny 1 Pirates Recursion for fun. Bradigus for fun for a local Paint a Theme list event. But that made me friends. I feel like I'm missing something else, but I've dabbled in just everything.
What would you say? I guess this is a 2-part question. First part is, which gimmick list would you say has been the most broken that you've played over the years?
So that actually was related to one of the questions I saw, and I didn't play Una 2, and I didn't play Body and Soul more than once. So outside of that, in terms of gimmick lists, Bradicus was probably it, just because of the extreme ranges for everything. I think, because I know that some people are asking how Strange Bedfellows ranks, and I think it was probably the strongest gimmick list of Mark III for most of Mark III, and I think it managed to survive simply because there wasn't a whole lot of live in-person gaming going on at the time. And for the people who asked, that list is perfectly viable and has no issues still being played. I would still be playing it except that there are certain meta boogeymen I feel that it folds to regardless of pair. And by certain meta boogeymen, I mean one specific list that I'm sure I will be ranting on later. And every pair I'm building right now is built with that one specific list in mind.
All right. So the other question was, you just said, what was your strongest gimmick list? What's been your favorite one to play over the years?
Over the years, in terms of gimmick lists, my favorite to play was Saren in Mark II. And if you didn't play her in Mark II, the number of times when my opponent would ask what her feat did, and I would have to pause the clock to giggle uncontrollably. In Mark III, it was probably Abby 2. Every now and then you'll have someone just misjudge, just by a hair, a threat for her, and then all of a sudden she's parked 4 heavies in your deployment zone, and she's got more stuff alive than you do, and you're fighting on her terms. I played Abby 2 quite a bit, to the extent I think at one point I was like every second or third place pairing on DGI was me. Because I can't win an event, but I can get a whole lot of second and thirds, Jay.
Well, I mean, that's good that you're been so excited for WTC over the years then, because you can, if you get a team of players that go 5-1, 4-1, you can totally win the event.
Absolutely. And I have been very fortunate to have teams like that over the years. I've been very, very fortunate.
Yeah, so I'm thinking back of my play, and would you consider, I think that I would say my Trollbloods pairing is I would classify as gimmicky, even though it was kind of a mainstay. Would you say that Runes of War back in the day would qualify as a gimmick list?
Well, you'll need to pardon me for a minute, because that gave me some PTSD flashbacks for Abby, for Legion. Yeah, so in general, and my philosophy is, gimmick lists are perfectly fine, and if your gimmick, and they have ways to lose, but if your gimmick is good enough, that's perfectly okay. Krios 1 being the prime example. Runes of War, no knockdown tough in Mark II was a thing. It was a real thing.
Yeah, on cheap, decent units.
Yeah. So I don't know if Trevor mentioned this when my first WTC, to give you an idea of how much I love gimmick lists. This was prior to Mark III being announced, and I pushed so hard for all 5 of us to faction swap to trolls, to just put 5 meat mountain lists as 5 pairs. 10 different trollcasters, 5 meat mountains, 5 Runes of War, or whatever the Calandra list was called, the Elemental Evolution, whatever the mixes are. And then the entire gimmick was going to be, okay, you brought two meat mountain answers. Did you bring 5?
Yeah.
Because
I think that I would probably say that Runes of War was probably the strongest gimmick list I played, and I'd probably say that Calandra was probably the funnest gimmick list that I played.
She was. At that time, Dan Sammons was really big into trolls, and he lives close to me as well, so I'd get to face that more regularly than I wanted. Let's go with that.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I guess with that introduction, I guess one last one.
Sure.
You were the Team 1 captain for America before the
For 2
WTC
years?
got canceled,
Mm-hmm.
and the year before. And then most recently also you were top 8 at Warfare Weekend, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was your pairing for Warfare Weekend?
So my pairing for Warfare Weekend was very. I was in a weird spot meta wise. My local metas, and I need to preface all of this. My local meta is in a phase of rebuilding, and I wasn't certain with all the changes at Warfare Weekend what I wanted to play. So I literally said, what have I not played in forever? I did like Chuck Ellswick. I said, let me dig out Legion again. I haven't played them since my first WTC, and I wanted to play Legion, and I wanted to play the first caster that I ever played in the Invitational, which was Callus One. And then I asked, when in doubt, asked Jake what a good Legion pair is, and I said, Jake, what do I need to pair this with? And he suggested a Abby One double Archangel Lightbringer list, just to really ask difficult questions. And so that was my pair. It was Callus 1, and then a list that I played 2 practice games with and never actually put on the table in the Invitational. That being said, I'd also only gotten 2 practice games with Callus 1, so it was work had gotten really, really busy, and I got no practice. So
was Warfare Weekend was doing it where you had to play both lists in the tournament, is that correct?
No, they removed that the year Chris Davies won. They removed it the next year because Jake was list locked going into the finals, and they said they don't want that to happen again.
Okay, so I had people, some people say that they thought that Michael Stone picked his finals match because he had been list locked into it, but it was that wasn't the situation. He ended up picking it on his own.
Correct, and that's a real interesting, wholly separate discussion there about what do you wish to play in that specific matchup. I think part of that had to do with scenario hit him pretty hard because on a vacuum, that list going into the finals is just a grind and attrition list and should be doable. But I believe so. I feel bad because after my loss, I had a 6-hour drive back, so we got one last round of Sugar Fire Barbecue and got on the road. I believe that scenario was super live off the top of my head, and that was a contributing factor. Not to say that Conan played really well.
Sure, yeah.
Mike played really well.
Michael was playing a low model count list. And, one of the weaknesses could be really live scenarios. So that's just the way it is.
and as I found out with the Abby 1 list, sometimes with low model count list, like if you've got a unit of Doom Reavers, 2 of them can flub an attack roll and you're okay. If you've got 3 huge bases, nothing can flub. Like I had to put Puppet Master into Abby 1 specifically because how critical it was to have live activations. But yeah.
All right. Well, just a reminder for the listeners at home of the format. We'll chat with each other for about 45 or 50 minutes for a free episode that's available to everyone. And then if you back the Patreon, you can listen to the bonus episode. I'm trying to do 2 community members a month and a privateer press staffer once a month and Hungerford once a month as my rotating format and list of guests. So most of the questions are going to be from the Patreon backers. If you back the Patreon, you can join our Discord, and in the Discord we have some pretty fun discussions, and then also you can submit questions to get asked, and we can go ahead and dive into those. So first question, these are going to be from Dragon Pup. He says, how was Warfare Weekend?
So for years I've said Warfare Weekend is the best value of War Machine game you can get for your dollar. There was a notable lowered attendance this year. There were only about 2 tables of scrambles going. For those of you who don't know what scrambles are, imagine being able to do an 8-man single list, single scenario tournament basically continuously, because as soon as they were filling, they used to fill up every 30 minutes. They'd have another one start, and at one point they had 30 going in years past. This year it was only a couple. That being said, Canadians couldn't travel if they tested positive on the way back. They couldn't go back into their country until they tested negative. Missouri is, if you look at a heat map for COVID, it was a white hot spot. So there are a lot of people who didn't travel in and prioritize safety. It was 100% vaccine required. It was masks optional, but encouraged. I felt perfectly safe being around large groups of people. I am, however, a really weird introvert because large crowds don't really faze me. I just ignore them like I ignore everything else. But it was really, really good to see a bunch of friends again. I hadn't seen some of these people in a while. I hadn't seen some of them since the weekend before, because leading up to Warfare Weekend, I hit 5 qualifiers in 6 weeks, I think. So, it was really just, I mean, we play these games to hang out with our friends. We go to these big cons to go and see our friends again, and it was really good to just see friends again.
You kind of touched on this already, but his follow-up question was, did it feel weird being around large groups of people rolling dice again?
Only in one specific aspect, and that's when you see a table of 30 people playing ship captain crew, and I'm not certain that's the healthiest barometer. Basically imagine 30 people playing craps on one table, and you've got ship captain crew. I enjoyed it greatly. It didn't feel weird to me. It felt fantastic, and I really think we should just all do this more often.
The next question, from Dragon Pup, he says, how do you feel about the Great Rebalance?
I'm really happy with it. I think it did tighten the delta between top and bottom. I think it added a ton of options. Again, you're going to hear me talk on Legion quite a bit today, but one of the things that at one point there were going to be, before the 5th backed out, there were going to be 5 Legion players in the Invitational. There were going to be 9 different casters represented among 5 players. One person was considering also running Callus 1, but they couldn't make the Invitational after all. So I can't imagine a better diversity on, and that's not true for every faction, don't get me wrong, but Legion in particular had 8 different casters in the Invitational, all specifically chosen to fill a specific purpose, and that's unheard of in any Miniatures game. I think I think for all that people say about Conan winning with the same lists he's been playing all year, yeah, he's a great player. He's been playing the same list and he's super practiced with them. Of course he's going to do well with them. But I also think there were probably 6 other casters in Khador that opened up with this rebalancing, including literally the one that makes me sick to my stomach. But I definitely,
which one is that?
Zerkova 2. Zerkova 2 is my personal. I can't tell if she's not being played enough. So she's always been in that weird vacuum of does anyone actually build the list? But if you've ever built or played or proxied the list, you can fairly reliably get like turn 2 caster kills, or as one of the Canadians was telling me, well, he protected his caster with 7 or 6 transfers, Kriya Aura, and shield guards. So I only killed both of his turtles and some other stuff. It's the list can attrition super well. It can assassinate super well. It randomly got Thamrite Advocates to give it more focus and rerolls, and I think it's something like a 90% chance to crit stationary a caster. It's just that's one of the 2 reasons I'm not playing Callus 1, because I truly believe Zerkova 2 can use 2 sprays to kill everything the first one touches, and then the second one kills all the incubi. Just dead. And that's why I'm looking at other lists right now. That's one of the reasons I'm looking at ret. Because it's one of the only factions in the game with large amounts of immune to cold troops. And the other one being trolls, and I'm biased and don't like the look of trolls. That's all it comes down to.
Okay, so his follow-up, again, this is, you've touched on it a little bit already, but we can dive a little deeper. Do you think it narrowed the Great Rebalance? Do you think it narrowed the gap between the top and the bottom of the factions? Do you think it helped widen the field of options?
I definitely think it narrowed the gap. As somebody who played Strange Bedfellows for 6 months straight, Strange Bedfellows is the closest I've personally felt to cheating in Mark III, because I didn't play Circle for Una 2, but it's pretty close. Strange Bedfellows is still really good, but it's not absolutely oppressive. The example being that I kept giving people a steam laborjack that helps on the docks lifting boxes can threaten 17 inches in that list, and something's just wrong about that. The game became a question of measuring sticks more than anything else. And as great as that is for sales of measuring sticks, it's less fun for people to actually play. And now there's a lot more options. A lot of this, and it's not immediately obvious, a lot of the stuff didn't get nerfed, but you can't take it for free. And a lot of other stuff got cheaper, but the lowest common units didn't. So like Minoth, the Temple Flame Guard didn't get cheaper. But the other units in the list, the Daughters, the Cav, they got cheaper. And then your basic melee just kind of stayed baseline. So you end up getting a lot more stuff on the board, which gives you a soft buff and helps tighten that gap without just looking at raw power. And then you got a lot of raw power too. And I'm gonna skip to the next one, Jay.
Okay.
Super secret ret tech. So why am I looking at ret? First of all, to answer the second part of this question, I don't know if Goreshade did anything wrong in the Requiem fluff, because to be honest, I haven't read it yet. But the dude smashed baby heads against the concrete in the original fluff, so I'm just kind of biased against him. And that being said, he's the first caster I'm looking at, Goreshade 4. Kind of a standard list. I'm still playing around with the final build, but it's starts with a couple units of Risavos, a big unit of or max unit of the medium infantry, because they body block for Goreshade and prevent tramples. I cut down to 1 executioner because he's still really good, and in terms on sidestep, which is underrated, I think sometimes. And then I'm still flexing on the battle group between 2 heavies and a light, 3 heavies. I'm not really certain what I'm going to settle on there. This isn't super secret tech, because if you put Goreshade in and start clicking buttons, it kind of builds itself. The list I'm pairing it with currently is Ravens in Houseguard. Houseguard theme has a really amazing special benefit called I get to take three mercenaries instead of just 1, so I can squeeze in a Void Archon, a Silas, and a Scythe all in the same list. And then it's, again, this isn't super secret tech. You click the Dawnguard Trident button, and then you figure out what else goes in the list. But I really think I like those 2. Before anyone rushes out and says, "Oh my God, these are the 2 I have to play," I like those 2. I also want to comment that Assyria is fantastic, and I really am not certain that I'm not going to settle on Assyria again, because I played her for 6 months and she's still really good. Gareth 2 is still really good. Falseer may have actually gotten a small buff in that last rebalancing. It's a nerf to the obvious part and a buff to certain other areas. I feel like I'm skipping like 4 more ret casters because they're all so good. I've seen solid arguments for all but one of them, and that one is Ossian. And Ossian, I will go on record right now as saying he is the Siege 1 of Ret, which means the answer is never him. You will look at his spell list, you will be like, this caster's amazing, he can do everything, and then you put him on the table and you're like, oh, he's just 2 focus and 4 inches shy of everything I want to do. Because, for whatever reason, it just, you think it works, and then it doesn't, and then you get sad. And every game I've put Siege 1, and almost every game I've put Ossian on the table, I've regretted it.
The Europeans definitely disagree with you with Siege, but we don't have to dwell on that. So you said that basically almost all the Ret casters are seeming viable. Is that going to include Ron?
Viable.
He's a caster that's been a little bit maligned.
So when you're looking at Ron, here's the key thing I want you to think about when you look at Ron. Ron himself is insanely good. People build Ron and they want to go and they build him in the forges with all the mittens guys. Build him in forges, don't build him with mittens guys. Mittens guys are terrible. The unit. The solos, they're great. But you look at the rest of Ron and you look at some of the other TK casters that exist in the game. How is he's just play him as a super caster. You know, he's got a polarity shield, he's got a Silenced force, not force hammer, his nuke. A Silenced nuke, TK. I mean, don't think of him in terms of the Mark II, I'm going to build the list this way and drag your caster and win this way. Build him in terms of, I'm just going to play a really good TK caster.
I guess one more follow-up question is,
sure.
we recently had a guest on the podcast who had been playing a lot of Goreshade, and he said that he thought that Goreshade was probably in the top 5 casters of the game list for him. Are you that high on Goreshade, or where do you place him?
Top 10. I wouldn't say top 5. He has a very strong control playstyle. I feel that his style is a slightly worse Callus 1, but slightly better for the meta I expect. So my issue with Goreshade is that he is a medium-based caster, which is oftentimes harder to screen against a good gun line that you can with Callus, and his infantry is usually slightly squishier. The benefit is, again, Zerkova 2 immunity. Plus, he's a Ghost Wall caster. He's got an armor and hit buff. A damage and hit buff and an armor buff. He's a very, very good caster. I would just put him about top 10 instead of top 5, which, again, is just arguable splitting hairs thing.
Yeah, I mean, it can be pretty hard to differentiate on some of those.
Now you want my super hot take.
I'm ready.
Buddy asked what the bottom 3 factions in the game right now are, and this segues. I'm probably jumping ahead. What do you think? I think the bottom 3 are.
It seems likely that you're going to say Infernals in here.
Yes. Infernals, Krix, and Minoth, I think, are actually bottom of the barrel right now. And I think they're all so. One of the questions was why am I not playing Infernals? I've passed on multiple offers to get a solid Infernals army. I've got a good local Infernals player. I could borrow his stuff. Infernals and I think Minoth and Krix suffer from the same problem. They have a very painful negative play experience for new players. They have the summoning mechanic. They have Denny 1, Scar 1, and they have Harbinger's Martyrdom. And the entire faction is based around that. And at the low level, this makes for miserable games at the shop. You have a guy comes in with his brand new battle box, and then he looks across, and his opponent makes 17 heavies, and he just never wants to play this game again. And at the high level, you start putting sniper shots into solos that have armor 11 and 5 boxes, and then all of a sudden there's no more heavies to make, and the Infernal player just loses. Or you put a Void Archon on the table and they can't martyr, or you deal with Krix because you know how to deal with Krix. You've gotten the reps in. And those 3, I think, suffer the most from balancing for how do we make the new player less miserable. in the current meta and suffer at the high end because of that. I actually truly think Infernals needs a series of buffs, starting with defense to their Soul Stalker and ending with cheaper lots of things to get to where they would be in a good spot. And before you get, or I get, all of the angry reacts in the world, at the end of the day, every solo they make is, or I'm sorry, every heavy they make is basically a bad monstrosity. I think there are 30 boxes and a 12-18, and I think the average mat and POW of melee troops at this point in the game is something like mat 10 PS 18 Weapon Master, is what it feels like. So congratulations, you traded your solo that you need to score a flag for a heavy that then died to 3 charging anythings. Anyway, that's my rant on why I think Infernals need buffs and why I am unhappy with them. And I'm going to pick on a really good buddy of mine to highlight the difference between the two. I had a buddy play a picture-perfect game of Infernals into Strange Bedfellows. Did everything exactly by the book, the exact way he should, including engaging turn 3, and I didn't push aggressively because of scenario. I didn't need to. He engaged turn 3 and did everything exactly the way he should have, and he killed 2 angels and that I couldn't bring back. And then on my turn, I killed a colossal and 3.5 heavies and forgot to activate a unit of angels. The disparity in where Infernals are feared by new players and where they actually are once you've gotten the hang of how to beat them is just not fun for the Infernals player. I don't know. Your mileage may vary.
I mean, yeah, I played a fair bit of Infernals and eventually moved on from them, and a big part of the reason why was because for me personally, they just weren't that fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and part of it was that it didn't really feel like what I expect from a game of Warmachine either, and so that was probably part of it for me as well.
It feels to me like bad Mark II troll beast heavy. You have countercharge, but that's about the only trick you really have. And putting heavies up there but never initiating peace trades always feels bad.
Yeah.
What's next?
All right, next questions are gonna come from Zemo is Cool. He says, more on Bethane 2. What lists do you like with her? How can you best use her feat to serve Everblight and win games of Warmachine?
I don't like, so 1, I didn't like Beth 2 before the nerf, and 2, I don't like her after the nerf. I might like her, so my suggestion is let the web tokens stay, just like Locke's tokens do. But the biggest issue I have is I don't like Beth 2 because since the first Legion CID, Primal Terrors, the game has gotten progressively higher mat and higher POW. The net result of all of that is her feat is basically worthless because it means your opponent has to put 1 or 2 more models into something to make sure it dies. And the side effect is you lose large chunks of the rest of your army. I would build her right now if I was forced to build her. It would be a gunline based list of some kind, and it would be probably Ravens, but I would not be concerned about the feat mostly at all. I would probably use the feat to do something along the nature of keep a Blight Archon on a flag alive, as opposed to keep my Archangel in the middle of the board alive. Then again, I may be biased. When you play Strange Bedfellows for 6 months into Bethane 2, and you cast Hand of Destruction, the first time they transfer damage off that heavy or that colossal, you get giddy inside because you just realized all your reload shots and all your focus efficiency means you kill their army and not just one model.
All right, so next question from Zemo is Cool. He says, what list do you like with the Mechanolith? What matchups do you like her against?
I meant to preface this. So, I need to take a step back, and I need to explain my philosophy on building lists in general. For the last 6 or 7 years, I have been fortunate enough to be on the WTC team. For all but one of those years, I've been on Jake Van Meter's team. For all but this most recent past, Legion has not supported 2 players, which is one of the reasons I haven't played Legion in 6 years. Here's the bad news for anyone asking me questions. I have no idea what you play with Lilith for, because I'm pretty certain that I'm not going to get to play her, and I'm not going to build 2 sets of lists. I'm going to I will know obviously more when WTC selection comes out for the next year. But fingers crossed I make a team. Fingers crossed I make a team with Jake. And then assuming both of those are true, I let him pick whatever Legion casters he wants, and then I get whatever dregs he doesn't want. So that's a long, waffly way for me to say that I haven't really looked at her. I would assume you would throw Snipe, Animus, and 4 Ravagors, and just broadsides and go to town with Scather templates, because single wound infantry explodes. And Scather templates, Lightning Storm, and the Legion Mirror are actually one of the reasons I'm drifting away from Callus, because I was running Callus single wound infantry, because Hex Hunters under Callus are insane. Archers under Callus archers are just insane right now to begin with. And then your weakness is someone puts out a Scather, and your model dies, and then your Incubus dies when it's placed, and then you don't have a feat. And that was the other reason I was looking at Goreshade. So, Mechano Lilith put models in her list. I think she just makes everything with a gun just work, just across the board, up to and including, you have 17 Shield Guards running your caster, and now none of them get to do any work. Was that a waffly enough answer for you, Jay?
That's good. So to round it out, we can do for this episode, can do an interjection that you had. You said that you're willing to talk a solid 30 minutes on why Striker 2 is the best caster in Signar. Okay. We don't quite have 30 minutes. But
I will give you the
begin.
version. Some casters in the game, like Siege 1, are less than the sum of their parts. You look at their list and you're like, this is amazing, and then you put it on the table and it doesn't work. So some casters are not. Let me give you a hypothetical Signar caster. Air quotes hypothetical. We're going to start this caster off by saying we're Signar. So number one goal is not to win the game. The goal is to make your opponent miserable the entire time they're playing it. You know this. You've played Signar before. So we're going to start. We're going to start by giving you an armor buff against guns on the way in, because we know defense doesn't really matter, but this way you don't know how to pop guns. It's not like you have Arcane Shield or anything else you can stack on. So we're going to put D-Cell on. And then, we don't want your opponent to do stuff with their models. So we're going to give you a control spell. We're going to call it Rebuke, because I hear that's a pretty good control spell. That unit just doesn't get to give or receive orders for the rest of the game. But that doesn't feel like enough, so we'll give you a second board control area denial spell, which just leaves a Scather template that just kills everything it touches and makes your Ironclad immune to half-inch reach infantry. That seems like a playable thing to just, nuke your own guy in the back. You probably need like a hit buff or a damage buff of some kind, but, it's really complicated to juggle those, so why don't you just put it in one? We'll call it Positive Charge, and then we'll give you a battle group of let's just go with whatever came in the battle box, because if you haven't played just the battle box with Striker, Firefly, Lancer, and Ironclad is just insane as using up his battle group. Well, I don't even think it uses up his battle group points now, but it used to, and gives you an arc node, Positive Charge wherever you want it, a good hitter. And then sometimes you have to get up there and do some stuff, and then you want to get back to safety. So we'll give you velocity as well. I have used velocity and a 1 or 2 dice overload to kill a Khador Heavy. I have used velocity and disruption on my sword to charge a Khador Heavy, and then just go and score flag. And knowing the Khador Heavy couldn't get to me because it couldn't get focus. You have a feat that just says, I'm going to play on your side of the board because it's model unit, and everything's going to go in at mat 10, which I know is low now, but it's still mat 10. PS, probably 15 to 17. and I'm going to just, be all the way on your side of the board while you can't get to my backfield. And Stryker, his squire, and this random sentinel are going to hang out, score 3 points, and be completely immune to your entire army. He's literally like, what if you took every control spell you can imagine and stapled them onto Butcher 3?
Okay.
I hope I made your listeners happy for my absolute love for Stryker 2. He's everything I ever wanted to play in Signar. And one day I will go back to playing Signar just to play him.
All right. Well, we are going to end the first episode here. We still have a bunch of questions for the bonus episodes, so stay tuned, subscribe, like, all those things that you hear from all the podcasts. You do them with us too. As always, check out discountgamesinc.com for your shopping and gaming needs. And finally, second to last, thank you to all the patrons who make the show possible. You guys are awesome. And finally, thank you, Brent, for sharing your time and sharing your expertise.
Absolutely.